Hey, how's it going? It's Grant with the Garden of Eater.
And Shelby.
And today we're going to talk about everything there is algae. To grow it, not to grow it, is it bad, pros and cons, and basically our take on algae. Even when we only had like 150 tanks, a big response to that was, I don't know how you keep all the algae down. There is that whole stigma is algae is the worst thing that could possibly happen to your tank besides dead fish. And there's the other people that embrace it, like we did with Lucas Bretz at his place with Chris Biggs last weekend, like maybe 2 weekends now. However, he definitely has no issues with his algae at all. However, depending on your spouse, depending on your own likings, maybe the algae is not for you. So we're going to go through some tips and tricks that we've found with keeping all of our tanks, how to keep the algae away, what algae we actually like to keep and what not. But start it off, Shelby.
Coming in here hot, Carbon. Welcome to the team. Here is your Caradina video. I fixed them.
So thank you so much, Carbon. Welcome to the team. Thank you so much for your support. As always, with our live streams on Mondays, or as of at least recently with our past few videos, we're going to keep it topic friendly the first hour. So any questions, comments, anything like that that you want us to respond to, at least in the chat, refer them to algae or anything around that nature. Till then, we'll be doing this for about an hour. And we've got the Crypt Keeper question of the week. We've got a giveaway planned out. But the first hour is all algae. I'm going to nerd out a little bit. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So main reasons why people don't have clarity algae-free tanks is usually one of four things that we found. First one being is water changes. They're either not doing them, don't have, or not doing a large enough water changes, or they're just waiting too long in between water changes. One of the big things that Lucas Brest noticed when he came to our house for the first time was not just all the moss that we were just drowning in, but it was all algae free. And he's like, I just don't understand how you've got all this moss and it doesn't have any hair algae in it. You can search through some of the tanks. You will find we have some algae issue tanks, but they're few and far between. And the big difference between the two of us is I do a lot of heavy water changes and he does absolutely none. His whole system filtration, and I shouldn't say absolutely none. I think he does them as they're absolutely needed. But some of his tanks go very, very long periods of times with absolutely no water changes. So that will have a big effect on whether or not you have any algae. You would be surprised that you see some of these really nice high-end aquascape tanks and think, oh man, how are they dosing that much fertilizer and feeding the livestock and all of that to keep the algae back? Well, you'd be surprised a lot of those scapes only last for about 6 months before they start to fall apart. And the big reason is the massive maintenance, massive water changes that they're doing, not weekly, but daily, every other day. You'd be surprised. Some of the biggest tips that I've got from the biggest aquascapers is when you do your competition tanks, they're in those tanks every single day. They're taking algae out, trimming, doing whatever, but 50% water changes are not uncommon or unheard of in the competition scene. So if you're having algae issues, step up your water changes. But there is a few other things we could work on as well. The next one being is lights. Big issue with us is we don't really use our, headlights and daylights throughout the house. All we use are the tank lights. So in our bedroom, we wake up in the morning, we turn on our lights so we can find our phone, our clothes, our shoes, and move on for the morning. And then when we're done for the night, we might turn the tanks off a little bit early, watch some TV before we go to bed. But for the most part, they're left on for like 16 hours a day, sometimes even longer, and that can cause some issues. We've got 6 or 7 tanks on a row, same light, same water routine schedule, same feeding routine, and everything like that. And then one tank in the middle will have hair algae, or one tank on the end will have an algae issue or something like that. Every tank's going to be built a little bit different, bioloads, biostock. That's all going to have little bits and changes to affect that as well. But for the most part, we only have like 2 tanks in the bedroom that have any issues. One of the issues is a different kind of algae called Kleb. I'll get on that a little bit later. That's not really frowned upon. The other tank, though, has Cladophora or hair algae, and we definitely do not want that at all. Either tank, we wouldn't sell any moss out of those tanks, just simply because we don't want to pass that on to any customers. And then because of their infection, maybe you might see it that way. We do them at the very end of our water change schedule, so that way they don't contaminate any other tanks.
Stephen P. asks, is there any type of true algae that's actually bad for shrimp?
So, hair algae, it itself might not be that bad, but I've seen this several times in fish stores and other people's tanks, online, in photos and stuff like that, where the shrimp will actually get caught up in the hair algae, and because it's not actually a food for the shrimp, they will suffocate, and not suffocate, but starve to death and get tangled up, maybe stress out, have a little heart attack, stroke. But that thick, dense mats of hair algae or Cladophora can definitely be an issue with keeping shrimp. If there's any poisonous algae, I'm just not aware of it. I'm like the last person that should be on the topic of toxic stuff for shrimp, because anything besides copper basically is like a go for the shrimp for feeding them. They'll eat anything that's dead, living, or dying. Was that it? All right, moving back on. All right, we're back. I don't know what happened. I didn't do it this time, though. I swear it wasn't me.
Oh, you're
But if you're like us and you can't reduce the amount of hours that you turn your lights on because you're using them to see around your house, there are a few tips and tricks that we can do that we've learned to reduce algae issues with the lights. One of them is just simply raise the lights. With our newer stands that we built, all of the stands have little built-in razors. Basically, we just cut out parts of the support beams so that way the lights can slide in through, and you can see here in the photo that they're actually like 5 inches off the top of the light. This will drastically reduce a lot of issues with algae, just simply raising it those 5 inches. Of course, you can raise it a little bit higher and it would reduce your issues even more. There are some lights that are just going to be crazy overpowered. We have a saltwater light for our flower horn tank. The flower horn doesn't need a light. We never turn it on unless we're going to take a photo or look in the tank or something like that. But that light has no other purpose for us, because it would, even at like 6 hours of light and raised up pretty high, would cause algae issues in most of the tanks in our house. Just simply, we can't raise it high enough. Then the other thing is, you want to read this one? Go ahead.
Say, Jess, how do you get the green sides on the tank?
All right. So that was part of my discussion a little bit further on. Let me just finish up lights and then we'll jump onto that. So the only other tip and trick that I have for reducing the amount of light, say you have a row of 6 tanks, they're all in the same light timer, same water change schedule, everything like that, and you've only got issues in one tank, you can cover the top of the tank with like a towel or some type of poster or anything like that, and that will block out a lot of the sunlight. A lot of the times you should block even further over the tank in this case, because light will penetrate through the other tanks. And that's going to lead me into Sage's question here, and how to grow the green algae or brown algae on the sides of your tanks. The best way to do that is to penetrate from both sides of the tanks, and just simply not scraping over time. This algae will come. I don't know exactly how to get the green algae versus the brown algae. Some people will argue one is better than the other. I don't know what the shrimp prefer. I haven't done that much research or observed them long enough to figure that one out. However, I know from me personally, I'd rather have the brown algae on the sides of the tanks, just simply because when you go to scrape it off the front, the brown algae is a lot easier to scrape off than the green algae. It can really cause some issues trying to make the fronts of the tanks real nice to photograph or take videos or anything like that. But the more light, the more. I mean, some of these tanks right here have the green walls on them already, and they've only been running for like 2 months. And the light schedule hasn't been anything crazy with these ones. They don't get turned on nearly as much as our bedroom lights, but we're not feeding them. It's just simply the substrate, and we've done a decent amount of water change in there. So hopefully the sound is back on.
It is.
Okay. I just see Dr. Anthony. You've been scrolling for a while. All right. Any more questions?
That's a little off topic, but I don't want to lose it. Will Neocaridina eat live blackworms or leave them alone?
So they'll probably pick out some of them if they're really, really hungry. It's not that they won't eat them. It's just that if there's better things for them to eat in the tank, they'll probably eat those instead. Also with blackworms, they're not all going to survive when you dump in the tank. So some of them will probably die off, and then the other ones that will survive will thrive in your tank and repopulate and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vibes, for the $1.99 super chat. It says, remember to do your water changes, y'all.
Well, thank you very much, Vibes. That's
Thanks.
Definitely a great reminder. It's crazy enough. Like, we just now got to some of these tanks like all year, and like saying that's crazy, but it's the beginning of the year and it takes us 2 weeks to get around to some of these tanks. So it's not that bad. We are actually like first time on schedule since we started like the Triple Crown. Since then, everything's been like put back like an extra week or 2 weeks, or depending on how much we've been traveling, that is.
So we're talking about the walls. Alberto asks, some people say having green aquarium walls is good for shrimplets. Is this green dust algae, and how to encourage its growth without encouraging other algae?
So I think it's a diatom algae. Please don't quote me. I'm just a shrimp guy. I've got the tips and tricks on how to make the tanks look clean. I've also got some algae that we're going to want to grow as well. That might be crazy enough. But there are some pretty ones out there. But for me, I think it's a diatom algae. I'm not quite sure. I know there's some kleb that grows on the sides of the tanks quite well as well. It just doesn't get really thick. But the brown diatom algae is like what's preferred on the tanks, and that's what we were talking about before. But it's good for shrimp either way, I heard. And I like it. The only reason why we scrape the fronts of our tanks is because we got to take photos. We got to select shrimp for sales. We got to select shrimp for breeding, selective breeding, and stuff like that. You got to be able to see the culls to remove them out of the tank. All right. The next thing is going to be food. If you overfeed, you're going to have algae issues. With shrimp, that can be kind of an easy thing. There's certain algae that'll grow on the substrate if you overfeed, for sure. There's other algae that'll grow in the water column, like the green water algae and stuff like that if you overfeed. So water quality is definitely going to be codependent on how much you feed. Underfeeding is really good, especially for shrimp, because they should be grazing on biofilm throughout the tank. There are some fish like our discus that we make sure they get fed every single day, and a healthy load in the tank, simply because there's like a nice school of the dwarf neon tetras in there with them, and they're relatively quick eaters, where the discus are kind of like held back. I think it's because both sides are open for them viewing. You got to get the new rack set up for the discus to go in, and they're not going to be so scared. However, certain foods will cause dirtier water. That's why for shrimp keeping, we use the snowflake food when we go away on vacation. We can really overfeed and not have any issues with ammonia buildup or neurites or nitrates or anything like that. So we're going to go through and talk about filtration next, as being like the final thing on the four things that really are the big major issues with algae, and that's having just dirty filters. If you've got, and this is like especially even referring to bacteria blooms or algae blooms, if you've got like a really white cloudy tank, a lot of the issues with that and green water tanks is just simply because the filter is going to have a ton of built up organic waste, leftover food, waste from the livestock, broken down plant material and other stuff, just simply backing up the filter, not having enough space for surface area for the beneficial bacteria to grow and harvest and thrive and be able to break that stuff down. So cleaning out your filters would surprisingly do a good number on algae blooms and certain kinds of algae in the tanks for sure.
I don't know if you want to get to this one yet.
Yeah, we can.
So I cannot read that. But one of my tanks has red coralline algae. What is the overall best method to reduce and remove it? I believe this is in saltwater tank, because usually this is a saltwater algae, or maybe they have a brackish tank. So I know you know a product that would work for that. So I didn't know if you wanted to get to that yet.
What's your product? I'm stumped.
Razor.
The razor, there is a saltwater razor product, as well as freshwater. So that product would work more than more than like H2O2 and stuff like that. However, it can be toxic to your invertebrates. So it really depends what the livestock is in the tank. If it's a freshwater tank and you have that kind of algae, though, it might not be that algae. We've got like a bunch of different weird purplish algae that I don't know the name of. I've asked several different people in the hobby what they call it. And then I've had other people that I've showed people these like purple fuzzy, not Blackbeard algae or anything like that, algae too. And they're like, oh, good luck. That algae will never go away. And I'm like, well, I've had it before in some tanks and it's gone away on its own. And then some tanks, I just remove it, and it just grows back in this mass. But like overall, doing the four things that I just mentioned has gotten rid of just about every single algae. There are some algae that I think just look really cool. I don't see anybody else with them, no other photos of it. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm like the only one in the world that has this algae. And like, I won't let Shelby get rid of it or pull it out of the tank. I'm like, nah, we're growing this one. This just looks too cool. Have you done a number on that tank, Shelby? I feel that she just looks guilty.
I might have removed some of it.
Did you clean a filter? I think that's what you did.
No, I took a whole sludge out of it.
It looks like a freshwater sponge. It looks weird.
So
it's got
gross.
Like branches.
It was too gross. I'm sorry. I had to go. I removed a lot of it. It's grown back a little bit, but that stuff just grosses
I'm gonna
me out.
overfeed the tank. I'm gonna take out whatever shrimp are in there.
There's no shrimp in there.
I'm gonna
It's just an
grow
algae tank.
out so much algae in there.
Thank you so much, Oinky, for becoming a member. Hold on. I had it open. And here is your video. Welcome to the tank. It sounds so awkward.
Well, thank you for your support. Hopefully we'll see you at the, was it Keystone Clash we saw her at? Yeah.
Yes.
We've got to book that. Now that we know the Aquashella dates and everything like that, we can set and make all the other shows that we wanted to. The only one we've got an issue with is ALA and AKA. The two of them are on the same exact weekend as Aquashella.
And hopefully your 125-gallon tank is doing better after the water change.
But yeah, the algae was beautiful. It was purple. I don't know why Shelby was hating on it, but I'll have to see if I can't find some pictures of it and post it again. But it's definitely one of the cooler algae that I don't mind having in the tank. But it's like when if my mom's coming in a week and she saw that in the tank, she'd be like, ew, what's wrong with this tank? I know she would be. And I'd be like, Mom, you don't understand. You know how rare that algae is? Like, I don't feel like having to explain myself really. So I'm not too mad at Shelby getting rid of it. And then, like, God forbid my grandma would ever come over here. She'd just see that tank and be like, this is disgusting. I'm out of here. So it's right by the front door. It keeps them all out of there. So, all right, on to the next thing on the list is, of course, if you have a tank near a window, that's going to cause some algae issues, or if it's northern facing window, you might not have that many issues, but especially south facing windows, they're just going to build up more algae than other tanks. We have our macro algae saltwater tank, and it's right by the back door, and I constantly leave the slits in the door open so that way it gets a good amount of sunlight throughout the day. That on top of the low light LED light, the macro algae have been doing all right. They've been growing, but if it was a freshwater tank like the one above it, it's growing thick, real thick algae walls. So if you want real nice algae green walls, maybe sit the tank in front of a window for a few days, get the walls, and then move the tank. The algae will stay there. What is the look for?
The quality is just terrible.
Oh no.
I don't know what happened. Well, whatever.
All
Sorry.
right.
But Harley did say Coraline isn't bad. It's actually a good sign in saltwater aquariums.
Yeah, but that's why I'm wondering, is it like in saltwater or in freshwater, or yeah? This is the same question. I'll find out the answer. I need to know. All right. So yeah, the windows might not be a good thing. There is a few other things you can do, like the razor we had talked about. It is a freshwater or saltwater product. This will be a good killer for just about all algae. We have Cladophora and hair algae issues. As long as there's not shrimp in the tank, I will run and grab some razor, and with dosing this 2 or 3 times throughout the week, through 2 weeks of just doing a normal water change afterwards, and usually the hair algae or Cladophora or whatever issues I might have is cleared up and gone. Those are like the 2 major algae issues that we have throughout the house. We don't really have too much Blackbeard algae or anything like that. It does happen. It is in a couple tanks here and there, but it's very minute and it doesn't build up that much. Most of the time it's on the end of like Boos or Nubis roots, and we just rip it off.
Is Seacam XL good to get rid of Blackbeard algae? I cannot talk tonight. Every time I go to talk, I stutter.
So I have used it to like start to kill off the Blackbeard algae, But for whatever reason, the Blackbeard algae always came back. So if you have Blackbeard algae, I might as well talk about it now. I'm going to go through a list of like certain algae that I feel like we've gotten down. We've figured out the issues for and whatnot. And one of them is the Blackbeard algae. So there's a couple things that are going to be causing this. One is the dirty filter. If you can clean your filtration out once or twice a week for a few weeks to get rid of the Blackbeard algae, that is certainly going to help. Manual removal for any kind of algae is going to be your number one friend. Doing all of the things that we listed earlier is going to help prevent your algae from coming back. But if you already have an algae issue, you're going to want to get your hands in there, get the algae out, get as much as you possibly can, do a massive water change to help suck all the little bits and particles out that are left behind, and take it out. There's like certain little eyelash tricks, that the little eyelash tool, the mascara. Save me, Shelby, I'm a man. Those brushes, they are really good to twist up in like plants and stuff like that to pull out
for the hair algae.
For the hair algae.
For Blackbeard algae.
No, I'm just.
But I would suggest there's a lot of times where Blackbeard algae grows on driftwood and is a pain to get off. If you don't remove it from that driftwood, you're not gonna kill it. I'm sorry. You're just it's hard.
No, don't say that. I disagree.
We can
kill it.
Scrape it off.
Hold on. There's ways.
I mean, you can kill the new spores.
There's
Remember,
ways.
it's almost like a mushroom. It's spores in your tank. So you need to be very careful.
It can spread like that. But with water changes, reducing your light, cleaning out the filters, reducing the amount of food, and there's a couple other tricks I'm going to get to, all right? So when you're doing your water change with the Blackbeard algae, drain the water out as much as you possibly can. And then while it's emerged, if you don't have the Razor product, the Razor product is going to get rid of your Blackbeard algae. Like, don't have to pull it out of the water like Shelby says. But if there's shrimp in the tank, can't use the Razor, we're going to use H2O2. It's hydrogen peroxide. It's going to break down in the tank and just dissolve into hydrogen and oxygen. So it's not toxic to the shrimp or anything like that. And while your tank is fully open to the air, just take a little spray bottle of hydrogen peroxide and soak the area that's covered with the Blackbeard algae. You'll actually see it turn pinkish gray. That is the algae itself dying off. You can pull it off, pull as much as you can off, and then spray that area, and you're still going to treat the area that it was left behind at and prevent it from growing back. Not saying it's 100% guaranteed not going to grow back, but doing everything I listed is going to help, and you should have a lot more success than chasing the dream with Excel or something like that. I'm not saying Excel couldn't be used as a different regimen or something like that, but I find Razor works a little bit better. The other thing is Blackbeard algae really likes flow. So if you have it on the ends of your filter and stuff like that, and you've got a piece of wood that's directly in your outtake of the water, that's going to be your highest spot with Blackbeard algae. Also, it tends to grow on really slow-moving plants like Anubis and Boos. So trimming up old leaves and stuff like that is going to help get it out of your tank. But the Razor will help. Excel is a good product, but I think both the doses that you need to kill Blackbeard algae for Razor or Excel is going to kill your shrimp.
The tank is freshwater that had the Coraline algae.
Coraline, yeah. Try using Razor or even a hydrogen peroxide bomb. I'm not sure where in the tank exactly it is. Is there anything else?
Aaron asks, what's the dark green fuzzy algae that tends to grow on my driftwood under the light?
All right. So it could be a couple different things. Green and fuzzy could be Kleb. If you notice, like some of these tanks and behind us that are really green, it's like a big like new tank syndrome thing, having a lot of Kleb into the shrimp tanks and stuff like that. But It's more of like a biofilm with like a layer of algae, and then biofilm with a layer of algae, and biofilm that like builds up. So the shrimp do kind of tend to eat it. I prefer it not to be in my tanks. We've got like 5 or 6 tanks that still have Kleb in the top tanks, and those are not our best shrimp tanks. Our best shrimp tanks are like the clean tanks with a good amount of moss that is grown really healthy in the tanks. Those are usually our best shrimp tanks all around. But the Kleb isn't a bad thing. The other thing it could be is Cladophora. Now, that is a whole different beast on its own. I mentioned it before when I was talking about hair algae. Hair algae is like a little slimy when you pull it out of the water. It's kind of got like its own little coat to it. But the Cladophora, it looks like hair algae on steroids, but then when you pull it out, it's real strong. You could almost like make rope out of it if you had to. And it's just not going to go away as easy as hair algae. Hair algae can go away with just simply doing more water changes and it'll disappear. The Cladophora, I don't know if it's a plant for sure. The person that told me that it was a plant also called it, Cladophora is the right way, Cladophora. So it's not Cladophora. I don't know if it is a plant or an actual algae or what it is, but for me, it is like a hair algae on steroids, and it grows in several different ways. It can grow really long and really long and stringy like hair algae, or it can grow real dense and like layered mats of like really small, hairy layered mats. Kind of looks fuzzy. So I don't know if that's your one. Maybe research those, but Cladophora is not going away with H2O2 treatments or anything like that. The only product that I found that kills Cladophora is the razor, and that is why I like to recommend it over the Excel and other algae killing products that we've tried in the past. It works rather quickly, not a lot of work involved. It's just a bummer that it kills invertebrates. So not safe for the snails, not safe for the shrimp. It's fine for our rasboras and mountain cloud minnows and other fish that we have in our escape tanks that we use it on, because for escape tanks we'll go and buy a bunch of random plants right before we set up escape, and whatever looks great we just plug and play. So beautiful earrings. I didn't know you had those behind there.
Thanks. Guppy B said, any way to not grow algae in my pond? Plants are trash outside. Guppy grass is nasty with it.
So I think you might have a Cladophora issue. If it's outside, our issue with our ponds outside is the frogs. I think the frogs are going to be our biggest enemy outside besides the dragonfly larva, simply because, and it's not the dragonfly larva, they're a beast on their own. The dragonflies lay eggs in the water, the eggs hatch. The dragonflies themselves will eat shrimp. So you keep the tanks covered, no dragonflies. However, the frogs, you can't keep them out of anything aquatic. You've probably found them in your house, in your toilet, if you live in Florida, at one point in your life. They just love water, and they like to be out of harm's way. So they'll find a nice little spot in the greenhouse, and then when they lay eggs, it doesn't really do any damage. When the eggs hatch, the tadpoles don't really eat any of the shrimp. However, the frogs are dirty. They're nasty. They're going from pond to pond doing the nasty, and well, they're bringing stuff over, and it isn't good. So they could have possible hydra, planaria, or Cladophora or other algae that get stuck on them when they're jumping from pond to pond, and that can get spread over. And one of the biggest issues when we go collecting is you find native plants and they're just covered in Cladophora. It's almost in every single place that we go collecting now. I remember as a kid, algae wasn't really that big of an issue in certain spots on the rivers and stuff like that. Now it's just everywhere. So if I had to put money on it, you had Cladophora, dose your pond with razor, get it out of there. Other than that, put a little shade cloth over the top that can help. I also found that adding some snails outside really helped. If you can get your hands on some apple snails, those really did well for our tank outside in the. Gary is killing it.
No, but you're not supposed to have apple snails.
Well, they're not supposed to sell them in our club then because they were big mystery snails or mystery. They didn't know what they were, but they were apple snails. We threw them in the hot tub, and they did a good job at cleaning up the Cladophora. Another one is the actual mystery snails. Doesn't matter what color, blue, ivory, magenta. They actually are sold by one of the nurseries that we get our plants off of, and I feel like the nursery is doubling up on using them as Cladophora killers because in the ponds that we put the Cladophora in, the ponds that we put the snails in, we didn't have nearly as much issues with Cladophora as the ones that didn't have the snails. Also, I noticed in one of the tanks inside that did have an issue with it. We have some neurites in there. They did nibble on the Cladophora off the walls. There is still some on the substrate. So I don't know if they're going to sift through that or clean that off, but they did take it off of the plants and the walls of the tank. And then, yeah, I don't know about Sphinx or the other fancy snails, but I don't have any rabbit snails that are doing work on Cladophora or ram's horns or ponds or Malaysian trumpets, but the other ones, they should be all right.
Also, preventative measures first. So a lot of times, especially guppy grass or anywhere you get it, comes with algae in it, and it's just something you need to prevent in the beginning. Is treat it really well. If your pond is overtaken by algae, I would suggest restarting it, resetting it, and recycling it. Going through. I personally would not like to add any plants till a tank or a pond is cycled. Because you'll always get the cleb, you'll get algae, then it needs to balance itself out. Once you balance it out and that's all gone with the multiple water changes you do, then add in the guppy grass and make sure it's clean, and then you'll have a lot more success. And with the shade as well, our sun is just brutal. It's always going to grow algae if you don't have some sort of shade throughout half the day at least.
What's up, Matt? Did you get your package? You didn't.
No one's hearing you.
I know you're unmuted.
Yeah, I know. Oh goodness gracious!
I was pointing.
He said
they were
he
reading
really
lips.
liked the hat, and it's good quality. But you want to talk for the first hour? I can't tell you all the comments.
Well, who knows? Maybe it happened last week. We sent that off. I don't know. Can't remember now. It's all blurred. We've been working too hard. All right. What did you have to say? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Oh, it's preventing
Continue
plants
on.
and stuff like that from getting algae. There's certain dips you can do. I'm not a big fan of dipping them in chlorine and stuff like that. It does a lot of damage to the plants. But you can dip them in hydrogen peroxide or the Razor or the XL, like 15 minutes, then dip them in some RO water to kind of bring the plant back to life a little bit, rinse them off.
Drink some water. You need to bring back to life.
I'm fine. Got me all messed up with the mic being unplugged. But, yeah, I'll take a good glass of water. Find the next question.
Oinky said, have you ever used Thrive Aquatic Fertilizer and the 4 formulas it's available in? It sounds like the Thrive Plus could possibly encourage algae growth more than the others.
All right, so fun fact, we're actually a Thrive tester, and we're in the works of, we're part of the works of developing the Thrive S, which is the shrimp safe Thrive fertilizer. Basically has no copper, little less neurites and other stuff, so it's easier on the gills of the shrimp. But the plus, I know, is meant to be with low pH and CO2 systems with high that need high amount of fertilizer, and something else in the fertilizer to help the plants absorb, or the low pH is needed to help the plants absorb that fertilizer. So if you're not running CO2 with an aqua substrate, get the low pH, you're probably better off just using the normal Thrive. And if you have shrimp or other invertebrates, maybe you want to keep the Thrive S. But hopefully that solves your mystery on which one to get. Anything else over there? You're so busy in chat. I feel like I missed so much. People are like, don't you read your chat? And I'm like, no, I didn't know there was going to be ice cream in the hospitality room. Shelby, sign me up.
I said it. It's actually in our live stream. Do I need to get someone to get that for me?
I just need like a reminder once in a while. That'd be nice. All right. High flow windows, green walls versus brown walls, snails. All right, fish. There are some fish that we could go over, but I'm only going to talk about one. And the one that I have is the pound for pound champion, the heavyweight champion of the world. No, he is the small fry champion of the world. But pound for pound, it is the American flagfish. It is a Florida native killifish. We catch them all the time when we're out and collecting. But those things will eat just about any algae. And I do find that the ponds and little canals and stuff like that that we go collecting that have the most flagfish will have the least amount of algae. So for our personal experience, I'm not going to talk about like the Siamese algae-eating fish or any of the other fish that could be good at eating algae. The flagfish is the one and true that I can name off.
Interrupting you.
Go ahead.
Welcome, Get Shrimpy
Love
to
the name.
team. Putting your shrimp in the tank now. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. Goes a long way with the support to the channel. We've got quite a few things in the works that are brewing up, but doing this, all the support we've been getting through the website, it's helped Shelby step down an extra day. She actually took off most of the day on Friday. Like, I made her do a little bit of work like the last hour of the day, helping me gather up some plants for the auction for Saturday, but we had a nice relaxing day on Friday. We went and had Italian food and then slept like the whole day. It was like Shelby's dream day.
And then like expect me to be able to do anything. I was done for. I haven't had. It was Olive Garden. You know, my mom, all the way in Indiana, ate the same meal at the same time as me. She was like, I had Olive Garden today. I was like, no way. We live like 40 minutes away from our Olive Garden, so it's very rare that my mom ever gets out of the house. So it was very crazy that this happened. But anyways, sorry.
So she does get breaks, all right? Not days off, though. She always got to work for me. So when you ask her what job she working at tomorrow, Tuesday through Thursday, it's both. All right. So another little trick that we have, I talked about the towel. Yeah, I did. All right. Another little trick that we have is just simply causing more surface irritation and throwing in like a little air stone or something like that, more oxygen in the tank. A lot of stagnant water will build up more algae and issues like that. So a little air stone will go a long ways, especially with the ponds outside. If there's no water movement or anything like that in your pond, guppy beast, just simply throwing on a little water movement via like one of those outdoor pond pumps could really crank a big air stone and probably clear up your water more than you think. But use some razor. That'll help. Don't have to reset it, Shelby.
What?
Nothing. You're never listening. You're good. Is there
Reset
another thing?
it. Break it down. Reset the whole thing.
All right.
Burn it. Honestly, just torch the whole thing, start all over, and just hopefully round 2 is good, right?
Then another thing that can potentially get rid of your algae issues could be just simply dosing your tank with CO2. I kind of mentioned this before, the lower pH and stuff like that. Certain content in minerals and fertilizers and stuff like that won't break down in uh, certain ways that the plants can absorb them unless the pH is low enough or the CO2 content is high enough in the tank. But what can eat those and break those materials down is algae. So I'm not an expert in this field at all. I know that I've had algae issues and I've talked to certain people and just like CO2, man, just crank the CO2. So it's probably going to work. I know it is a really good fix for Blackbeard algae. I don't know why I didn't talk about it earlier when we were talking about that. But if you don't have CO2 in your tank and you have Blackbeard algae and you've tried everything else I've listed, but CO2 is a possibility for you, then crank some CO2 until the fish start gasping for air and then turn it down a little bit. That's the only tip and trick or anything I can tell you about CO2. We haven't done it or tried it. Why do the discus only do this during our live stream? Like they
Because I
look
think
so good.
they're hungry.
I've already fed them today, and I
Hungry.
sit here all the time during the day, and they don't do this until nighttime.
Do plants help keep the algae out? If they do, is it okay to use CO2 injection?
Yeah, so that is 100% going to be one of the things. Basically, the final thing that I was going to talk about for tips and tricks to get rid of algae is the more plants that you have in the tank, the better. This is going to help and fight and compete for the same exact nutrients that the algae is competing for. Like I mentioned, the algae can eat and break down certain minerals and elements that the plants cannot under certain conditions. So the CO2 is going to help with that. It's like similar to the Sulawesi shrimp salts. Some of them are like, they just don't break down unless you inject CO2. Well, over time, there's going to be enough CO2 that's going to break them down throughout the water. It's just going to take a very long time. So I don't worry about it too much. But if you're having algae issues and everything else that I mentioned isn't working, CO2 is certainly going to help. It's also going to help if you're really trying to heavily dose the tank with fertilizer to get the maximum amount of growth out of your plants. That's just a no-brainer. A lot of this probably sounds like I'm talking to like just common sense, but it's just, it really is just things we've learned and basic things that help the tanks. So we try to keep it simple and as basic as we possibly can. There's no like, all right, guys, you're going to go and you're going to mix 2 parts of this, 3 parts of this, and it's going to solve all of your miracle cures. It's just not that easy. I wish it was.
Someone, I can't find the comment. Someone did ask if we used a UV sterilizer, if that works.
So that could like help clean up like green water algae issues and stuff like that. It's certainly going to help clean up any little particles and stuff like so. The Cladophora, if it really is an algae that throws spores and it's going to go in your water column and plant itself onto another part of the tank, then yeah, UV sterilizer is going to nuke those particles before they can latch onto something in your tank. But it's not needed. It can help. I think a UV sterilizer is like the most expensive thing you could really add onto your tank to fix your issues.
Saints Dust asks, I probably sound stupid, but do you quarantine plants?
So we don't really quarantine tanks or plants or fish or anything like that. We just kind of like set up plants and tanks, or we set up the tanks for the plants and then we set up the fish afterwards or shrimp. But we will kind of dip the plants before we put them in the tanks. For the whole new rack behind us, we use just tissue culture cups, so that way we didn't have to quarantine, we didn't have to dip or anything like that. We just had an auction at our past club. If I were to buy anything from that club, it didn't matter who the seller was. It didn't matter if I was buying something from myself to move it. from one tank to another, from outside to inside or something like that, I would dip it into some no planaria to kill off any of the scuds or planaria from outside, and then maybe even nuke it for 4 days to get rid of any possible dragonfly larva if it's one of the tubs we don't keep covered. But that's not really quarantining them. Once they're in the tanks, then if there's an issue with algae or something like that, we do one of the 4 things that we just listed off. The big major 4 things to take care of that issue. Anything else? Diving
Not
back
yet.
in?
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some different kinds of algae that we work with. I mentioned the cleb. This is kind of one of the good algae. Pros to it is it's like a food source for your shrimp. But I wouldn't really want to start a colony of shrimp in a tank that had cleb unless I'm throwing like 50, 60 shrimp in the tank, because then that amount of like full grown juveniles, even those kind of shrimp would do a really good number and clean that tank up rather quickly. But like just 10 shrimp, they're going to get lost in there, and I'm going to want to do water changes. I'm going to want to pull the cleb out, and it's just not going to deteriorate as I'm going to want to feed the shrimp and see them and stuff like that. So we're personally not a big fan of it. The Cladophora, hair algae, those are just a stringy algae. It's basically self-explanatory, but one is a lot worse and harder to get rid of. Staghorn, this is kind of like, it looks like Hydra, but like on steroids. It's way bigger, it's longer, kind of grows like tentacles. Looks like a freshwater coral, but it just doesn't look the best. Grows on wood, it grows in high flow, and again, one of the best ways to get rid of it would be the razor. Hydrogen peroxide kind of works, but it just kind of comes like really brittle sometimes, and then it'll like kind of regrow. So I'd rather use the razor and get rid of it. Blue-green algae. This is an algae that'll happen if you have like a foreground plant that'll die off, too much fertilizers or root tabs in the substrates, overfeeding and a lot of food, or underwater changes in high light and stuff like that. It is cyanobacteria. It is toxic, so you're not going to want to like drink any of that water or anything like that. But it is fairly easy to remove, manual removal with a net. Remove some of the substrate with it. If it's attached to any of your nubis or anything like that, it can grow on plants as well. Just simply trim the plants, remove it. It is one of the easier algae that I named to get rid of. Just clean water and it should go away on its own. All right. The Blackbeard algae, it's like the hardest algae to get rid of. But it's beautiful to some people, and some like cichlid tanks and stuff like that. If you're not able to grow any plants and you want something to cause a little motion in the tank besides the fish, then maybe some Blackbeard algae is up your alley, but not a big fan of it. Probably go with some like really hardy Anubis and just try until it works.
I got too many jokes for that. Nathan. Any way to get Blackbeard algae off a sponge? Also, if I soak it in peroxide, can it come back to life, or is new growth I'd be seeing? I've done this twice before and it keeps coming back.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the H2O2, it'll kill the algae off and it'll die, but you got to remember that algae came from somewhere. So you're going to have that problem come back if you don't solve the issue in the first place. So just simply killing the algae isn't going to fix your problem. You've got to raise the lights. You've got to increase water changes. You got to decrease flow. The filter, it's a high flow spot. It's a hard place to reduce algae from. But like simply putting a little towel or something over that spot to kind of shade it out or black that part of the tank out is really going to help out with the Blackbeard algae issues. Also, I don't know if you've got the dual sponge filters or anything like that, but if I had Blackbeard algae on one of the sponge filters, I just simply remove that sponge filter, or if they're on both, I just remove both of them and just start with all brand new sponges. As long as the tank was nice and planted, I wouldn't worry about beneficial bacteria. The substrate's going to have plenty of that and stuff like that to keep the tank clean. Might have to do a little extra water change or something like that than you would. But getting them off of the sponge might just be as easy as replacing the sponge with a brand new sponge. And then you can clean that old sponge with hydrogen peroxide and several, wake up, no eye closing. Several, just rinsing it out and getting every particle out of that sponge. I know it's really hard to do with the really super porous small particle sponges.
Oh,
you can interrupt me. Go for it.
Finally. Eric with the $20 super chat says, "We love Grant and Shelby." Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, Eric. Hope you're doing well today. We talked about a lot. I don't know if you're just jumping in. I know you're usually an early bird with that, so it must have been a good talk over at Bob's Steam Fun. So if you're just jumping in, don't worry. Crypt Keeper has passed it on. You can watch these videos at 2 times the speed, and he says I do sound like a chipmunk. So, all right, we've got 4 minutes left and 4 more things on my list to talk about. So there are a couple of nice algae that we do personally grow on purpose. One of them is the red moss. If Crypt Keeper could be so kind at this time to drop that scientific name down in the chat below. I'm not even going to try with it. Shelby is the one that has it on demand when I need it, but I didn't want to bother her to put it in chat right now. So Crypt Keeper, thank you so much for putting that in chat. I'm sure you've done it by now, but this is like the rarest moss or algae in the hobby. It's called red moss, but it is actually technically an algae. It goes for like $30 a golf ball size portion. It is not easy to care for because if you keep your tanks nice and clean, it's not going to grow very well because it's an algae. It's an algae. So you kind of got to walk that fine line of, oh no, I'm growing too much algae or I'm not growing algae at all. So to grow just hair algae in a tank, no problem at all. Let me tell you, I could do that in every tank if I wanted to. But to grow just red moss in a tank without the hair algae is definitely a task. It can run some issues. That's why we don't really sell the hair. We don't really sell the red moss that often. It's because every now and then it'll just go through cycles where it's showing too much hair algae, and it really only grows in like 1 or 2 tanks throughout the week. Why? Who's making fun of me? You're making fun of me?
No, I said it needs to shave because you said it shows its hair algae once in a while.
It needs to shave. All right. It's cold. And on them cold days, I can't do this. Like, you should see the way Shelby takes care of herself. She walks out of the house like this with a hair scarf. I can't do that. This is my hair scarf.
Right, you had 3 minutes. Did you even get to the second thing?
It was red moss, and then Pellia. You got round Pelly, so Ostertang. You've got the mini Pelly. You've got different kinds of liverworts. They're kind of like an algae more than they are actually a moss. So with the red moss and these Pellies, using the razor and hydrogen peroxide is actually going to kill those off as well. So with treating those tanks, water changes and moving around the light and feeding is your only way to go about it. Will floating plants help with the algae so it won't grow? That's my job. Absolutely.
My job.
We don't have time for this.
I have nothing.
We don't have time for this. I've got one other thing I got to talk about.
Yes, it's my biggest argument that I have. I keep just throwing floaters, and it's not.
It's not an argument. It definitely helps. All plants are going to help. They're going to remove
that
fight
one
for the
helps
same.
The most because it
they're
blocks
competitors,
light and it takes the nitrate.
It's a double punch. It really is. It's a combo.
It helps.
But
it takes a long time.
It's so annoying to get out of the tanks and to get out of the fish that you're trying to catch and stuff like that. 20 seconds. I'm going to talk about the algae is like, say you got some rare purple algae, you got some red moss, you got some other things, and they're growing in the tank and they're all looking cool, and they start to turn orange. Oh, that's a sign that they're dying. That's not good. So if you get red moss or something like that in the mail and it looks like crap, as long as it's not orange, it's good. All right, it's the time. You're slacking. You're not even ready. We're 5 seconds over. We can't get this
you're
right.
Stressing me out now.
One time.
All right. All right.
It's just once I'd like to get this nice. All right. It's that time.
How are you guys doing?
How's it going, Crypt Keeper?
Good. Hope you guys had a good week.
I can't hear you over the dog. I'm sorry.
So now it's the dog. I did move the camera a little closer.
Yeah, no, the dog barked the same time you tried to talk.
Oh, okay. Well, I said I hope you guys had an enjoyable week. I do have a couple questions related to tonight's chat. So, Shelby, you do get a little break from genetics, so congrats. Are shrimp able to eat algae, or do they eat algae?
All right, so this is a question, or more likely, this is a reason why a lot of people will get shrimp and start in the hobby, is because they think that the shrimp are going to solve their algae issues. And if you notice, I listed snails and I listed some fish, a fish, but I didn't talk about shrimp and being one of the algae removers in the hobby. There are some claims to some shrimp that, this shrimp will clear up this algae and it'll be gone and da-da-da-da-da. I don't want to take any punches at anybody, but I just saw somebody recently post like maybe 3 weeks ago the red-nosed shrimp in a tank full of hair algae and said that this algae is going to be gone within a week. Well, here's the thing. I think this is for all shrimp, and maybe there's some rare species or something out there that is just going to be super hungry and take care of it. But there is a certain myth and stuff like that happens, but I'll explain that as well. But I don't think any of the shrimp actually eat the algae. What they're actually doing, or if they ever eat algae, is dead or dying algae. I don't think they have any interest in the healthy algae that's growing. However, there's a lot of people that are like, oh no, I for sure move algae from one tank into another tank because my shrimp will eat it. Well, sure, if you have issues with algae in one tank and you don't have issues with algae in the tank that the shrimp are in, that's probably because you have a healthy environment and doing a healthy amount of water changes on the tank that the shrimp are in, and that the algae is hitting the tank and immediately is getting choked out and not living in the right environment and is going through shock from being moved from one parameter to another, and it's very weak, and at that point it's starting to die, and then it becomes food for the shrimp. So I don't think that they're going to be the cure to just throwing into a tank that's not going to have any issue, or they're not going to be able to take down a mountain of algae. However, if that mountain of algae is already crashing, they're going to be a good cleanup crew for the dead algae bodies or particles and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
okay. So what if we're to dehydrate the algae? Would that weaken the algae enough to make it palatable for the shrimp?
So we feed shrimp algae all the time. If you want to think of like spirulina and stuff like that, I just gotta think how much good nutrients is in algae and stuff like that, and is it going to absorb water and become able to grow back again? Because we've had Blackbeard algae on wood and dried it out, took a toothbrush to it, took all the bits and particles of algae off that we had, put it into a new tank, and it grew Blackbeard algae in the exact same spot. So I can't say that dehydrated Blackbeard algae is going to be safe to put into a tank that doesn't have it, because it might possibly be a spore or something like that can rehydrate and affect the rest of the tank.
Okay, yeah.
I also noticed that like Neocaridina will eat spirulina a lot more than Caridina. I'll drop a spirulina pellet for the same amount of shrimp in a neo tank, and they'll devour it within 2 or 3 hours. Where the caridina, it can last in the tank for 2 or 3 days before it's all the way to eaten or disappeared. So,
Oh, okay. And then, so what about like foods that contain moss? Do you think the moss could come back and contaminate a tank that you have set up for just hooker moss or just spiky moss or whatever? Do you think the moss infused foods could cause an issue with contamination?
yeah, I think so too, because, like, say for terrariums, especially, you can buy spores of moss. That's just dehydrated moss. And then you add it into your mud wall and stuff. You mix it into the nutrients, and then it'll grow back from a dried spore. So I think that's a possibility as well as is coming back into people's tanks.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then one last question. It's kind of a curveball. Going
All
back
right.
to one of your streams back when the Florida Aquascaping cruise started up, you showed a purple fungus in your tank. Did you ever figure out what that was?
No, that's the unknown mystery algae that Shelby just admitted to, like, cleaning and taking a big part off of. No, like, I showed it to like several people at the shows, different aquashellas. There's just certain people that I know have been in the hobbies for so long. They might not have 500 aquariums in their house, but over the 50 years that they've been in the hobby, they probably had more aquariums, set up more tanks, held more for customers and stuff like that. And I've showed pictures, I've asked questions, and everybody's like, no, that's a gnarly new one. So there's definitely some strange oddball things that are going to pop up when you have 300 aquariums. I think
Gotcha.
that's one of them.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping you had an answer to that one. It definitely looked pretty cool.
I mean, hey, if I got a volunteer out there that on their next order wants some cultured
Ew,
pieces into a breather bag, I'd be more than happy to send some to the New York waterways.
Absolutely.
Both are stressing me out.
It's going to be a nice portion of moss. There's Pilo moss. Everybody's like, oh, you want some Pilo moss, or do you got Pilo moss? I got Pilo moss, but do you want what else has it with it?
I've got some of your Pelia moss in the beta tank behind me.
No, not Pelia. Pilo. Pillow.
Oh, okay.
Pilo? Yeah, pillow. I didn't think it was actually pillow. Pilo.
Well, I do have 2 empty tanks that I'm looking to set up, so I wouldn't mind trying that moss in one of them.
I also got some rose moss I can send your way too.
Okay,
Did you get any of that at the shows?
No, I don't have any rose moss yet.
I brought it to 2 of the shows last year, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think the one show that I was at where you had a booth up, I think I only had like 5 tanks set up at that time, and all of them already had moss going in them.
Right. Well, that's going to be it for this week, man. And I know you've got a list of other good ones, so next week will be another great question. How'd you like the little intro?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much, Shelby.
No problem.
I think we got it right this week, man. They did you justice.
Yep. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. You have a good day.
Yep. See you later.
Later, guys. Later, man.
See
See you, Shelby. All right. So, for those that don't know Crypt Keeper, we have a video that just went out where we got brand new shrimp from Crypt Keeper. He had something we actually didn't have. He did a video on his channel where he boxed it up, and then we did the unboxing, and then I critiqued and told him how much his packing sucked or actually was good. Was I nice? Was I mean? Did I tell him that the bag came and looked like pink lemonade and turned his stomach upside down? I wouldn't do that. Yep. But yeah, there's some bloopers at the video. So if you watch the video to the 6 minutes and 77 seconds, like the average duration of other people might have done or not made it to the end, there is bloopers. And I did something to the shrimp. If there was that one say that was a little froggy at the acclimation point, it was probably because he went through the tornado. I'm sorry, I was not thinking. Shelby wasn't there.
All right.
Everything's her
Let's
fault.
get
She
back
admitted
on the
it.
tracks here.
Oh, it's after an hour. I can do whatever I want
Brandon,
now.
how would I go about dosing ferts to grow green dust algae for setting up a new Caridina tank?
So I don't know. I don't know the fertilizers. We get them with absolutely no fertilizer at all, except, I mean, we do dose a little bit of fertilizer with the original cycle, and we dose that just to feed the bacteria. It's not actually to grow the green walls. If you want nice green walls, just put a light on both sides of the tank, and it's going to penetrate, and it's going to just make algae grow from both sides and both spectrums. I don't know. It makes it real thick, and it just takes off. So hopefully that answers.
Are fruit flies okay for Neocaridina shrimp? I'm cycling a few shrimp tanks in my dart frog room, and the shrimp tanks have lids, but some of the fruit flies are getting in the tanks and dying.
Well, Shelby can answer that for you.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's great.
You might set up some isopod
Little
tubs,
protein.
and gnats are going to get in your shrimp tanks, and those are fine too, guys.
They're great. They work out. Free food.
You-
Protein.
If it was reverse roles here and I had bugs getting into her tanks, she would not be
Yeah,
as
how
happy.
dare you.
But outside, we actually don't need to feed the shrimp pond sometimes because all sorts of little critters fall in the tubs, big and small, and the shrimp will eat them all.
What are you writing? Dr. Seuss book? First
Who do
class
you think
fish.
writes all those AI Dr. Seuss lyrics? Some
I've
computer? No, it's me,
Got my
Shelby.
plants growing
It's me.
like mad and no algae. And then finally I got hair algae, wondering what happened. Most likely either not enough water changes or a light issue.
But the light could be an issue because the plants are down
That's
here,
what I
not
just
really that
said.
big of an issue. I'm going to just explain why. But when the plant grows and all of a sudden the surface area is right above the light, this leaf now is subjected to algae a lot more than it would be if the light was raised up higher, like when the plant was smaller. So taller plants that aren't trimmed and taken care of are going to grow hair algae a lot more than the foreground plants and stuff like that.
Just had to bring this up. I like Jeff's comment was like, everyone here is definitely at different stages of plant, fish, and shrimp keeping, so everything is useful to someone. All the information you share is appreciated. As you said earlier, it might sound stupid.
No, I just didn't want to feel like somebody was like, oh, I wanted to find like the cure all, and it's like, no, it's just basics. Maybe some people are just being lazy, but there's ways that you don't have to do algae removal or water changes, and you can reduce your algae issues. Simply just turning the lights off, raising them up.
Scuba Steve said, I got the brown diatoms type algae. How do you go about that?
I like it. Leave it. It's good for the shrimp, and it's not going to be one of the algae that they can get clogged up in or anything like that. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I don't have a cure for it. I'm not going to tell you. Deal with it. It's good for your shrimp.
Passing when we are in Florida, and we do have a online store. It is tgoeshrimp.com. Someone probably already messaged you back that, but we are far back in chat, so give me a minute to catch up.
All right. Well, I think I covered everything on the list, actually, right before Crypt Keeper got on. So anybody has any shrimp questions, algae issues, possible plant questions, scaping, anything like that, we can get to those now. I did have a product I wanted to grab, and I forgot. The kid was right there. It was an active body that could have helped me.
For what?
Grab the box.
No, just get up and grab it.
I wanted to see if you could hold down the fork. You didn't answer
I'm
me.
holding it down. Doesn't mean
Well-
I'm holding it down good. Oh, man. Sorry if those videos were too loud. Let me know if they are. I will turn the sound down to those videos if they're obnoxious. So I'm just now catching up. Passing Wind said, yeah, you are in Florida. When I order, I like it to be from at least the same state, so that's good to know. They can last in shipping for so long. We ship everywhere. We've even shipped to Alaska. So
The shrimp love it in Alaska.
Shelby, now it's time to get me back for earlier. Apparently he muted me earlier. And I didn't know about it. Like you would like no one if no one said anything, I would not have known about it, Scuba Steve.
All right. So now is the moment. I will talk about our website. Oh, here we go.
We've already been talking about it.
We've already been talking about it, eh? Oh, man. All right. Well, here's the first prototype. It is a breeder box. You see our logo in the back. The 1 centimeter square spacings.
You're not presenting this, right?
You present it then, all right? I'm talking. It's got the little adjuster knob so it can go on rimless or the rim tanks. It's got a lid on the top, the little feeder hole. The new one will have a guard and a larger feeder hole where the PNW custom logo is. The actual clip itself will be raised up a little higher, so the box will sit lower in the tank. The logo is going to be dropped down and on the bottom as well. And then the lines are going to be a little bit more clear. If you saw the posts on Facebook, the laser, it was not the right one that he used for the finished product. So finished product should be on the way here this week. Pre-orders are currently available on the website. I believe they're $47. They were going to be $45, but we opted for the boxes so that way they can be protected. You might want to bring these breeder boxes with you or carry them around, and having them in a box is going to help protect them, keep them nicer, even just in storage and stuff like that. So they all have the little individual boxes. It was only an extra $2 charge.
All right. Scuba. We got to get a new cord, a new light. Everything is falling apart. Sorry. I said, how to test TDS and how do you get it to 0 if it's not there already?
You want to answer this one?
So how to test TDS, you need a TDS meter. They make them really cheap off of Amazon. And it says, how do you get it?
What does TDS stand for?
Total dissolved solids. He's going to get that. It's fine in this case. How do you get it to 0 if it's not already there? So if you're running it through, like obviously you would need to run it through an RO water system. If it's not at 0, it usually means a filter needs to be replaced. One of them. Don't ask me which one. I just tell Grant they need to be replaced.
Depending on how hard your water is and what your RO unit is, you might need to upgrade your unit from a 3-stage to a 5-stage. But if your RO water is like 3 to 5 TDS, you really shouldn't have an issue. After like 8 TDS, I generally replace the sediment filter. If it's still high after that, post and pre-carbon. Anything over 8 TDS, I replace the membrane. And generally, like we only replace our membrane once a year. We've got a 200 gallon per day unit that we let run all the time. And then we also have, what is that hashtag? Okay, all right, I see you. We also have the army of trash cans to store all the RO water at. So we replace the sediment filter maybe every 2-3 months, carbon filters every 4 months, and membrane, like I mentioned, once a year. Oh, got another donation, Shelby. Stay on top of that. You're slacking. Where are you going? You're going the wrong way.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Christopher Gonzalez, for the $9.99 super chat. Says, Soon to get new shrimp. I thought it was a word. Soon to get new shrimp keeper will be Neocaridina. The tank will be planted with an inert deep substrate, base layer crushed lava rock, with a top layer of coarse sand. It's the father fish method advice.
Hey, that's not a bad method at all when you want to keep Neocaridina. There is a little bit more to the father fish method where he goes out and he gets his sand from the lakes or something like that. So hopefully you got it from like a dry spot in your sand yard or something like that, or bought the play sand from Home Depot, and it won't have any critters or anything like that. Doing the father fish method, going down to like my local lake, I'm gonna get scuds, planaria, hydra, and probably some dragonfly nymphs and other little beetles and such like that could potentially harm the shrimp. But the just having plants in a nice sanded inert substrate, doesn't really matter what kind. Having a sponge filter and just keeping up with your RO, not RO, keeping up with your water changes, making sure you put a little bit of dechlorinator if you're using tap water. I don't want to like just push you off onto another stream, but 2 weeks ago we did a refresher course on Neocaridina shrimp, and it is pretty much everything you need to know about keeping them. And within the first hour, you're going to find out all the information, and you can watch it on a 2 times fast. I sound like a chipmunk, but in 30 minutes, you could be a Neocaridina professional like the two of us.
But one big advice would be for anything, obviously, if you've kept fish before, is to make sure that tank is properly cycled. That is the number one mistake I see a lot of people have, is not cycling that tank.
Did I not mention that? How dare I? That's why I have her.
And here is your video for the donation. Thank you. Totally did not mean to hit that twice. I'm so sorry.
You earned it. It was a great question.
It's a good question. I liked it. I love how the mic keeps coming unplugged when I go to talk, is what keeps happening. So people think you're unplugging. I think it was Crypt who mentioned it. That's hilarious.
Well, we talked about the breeder boxes as well on the site, tgoeshrimp.com. Everything is buy 5, get 1 free. So if you did want to order one of the breeder boxes and you bought 5 of them, we would throw in 1 for free. But this deal is only going to last through this week. It is over after that. It is our normal like buy 10 get 3 free as well deal. Just we've been having a lot of people that have been only buying 5 finding out about the deal and then adding in extra shrimp. So for the sale, I decided to start it off at buy 5 get 1 free for those smaller orders.
So Liquid Rock Aquatic says, have you ever tried putting a floodlight on a tank for 2 weeks, 24/7?
No, I haven't tried using a floodlight at all, but I imagine if you wanted to grow some green water, that would be the way to do it. I had slightly talked about green water when we were going over algae before, but it can be a great thing for feeding baby fry fish and stuff like that. We've got one pond with it outside. The plants don't really seem to bother with it at all or anything like that. It's just for viewing pleasures. It's not very nice.
But the closest thing we have come to it, we used to have this awesome Sulawesi tank that we had, and we had all the beautiful rock in it, and I really wanted algae because like where Sulawesi are and you go to collect them, all the rocks are filled with algae, and they love picking at it. Like they have the little white gloves and they love picking at it. So it's one of those things I like 100% wasn't. He was like, yeah, I was already thinking that. So we kept the light on for a lot longer and grew the algae on the rocks on purpose. And it was amazing. And then you just keep up with the water changes and it doesn't spread anywhere. It just stayed on those rocks. So it was really cool. That's the closest we've come to doing something like that.
We also have like some nice cultured Ceres stone and mountain stone in some tanks in the bedroom just from simply leaving the lights on too long. You don't have to do 24/7. 16 hours is going to grow some nice thick algae on the walls and stuff like that too.
How do you start a shrimp tank with light for the biofilm and keep that from getting hair algae, or is that really not a problem?
So the hair algae is definitely an issue. If you're leaving the lights on for too long, then you're going to get hair algae. Biofilm only needs 6 to 8 hours of light to grow, and you don't need to get it a really, really thick layer. You just kind of need it to coat and cultivate and like culture on the rocks and plants and in the substrate and stuff like that. After 30 days with 6 hours of light at all, you're going to have more than enough biofilm. So if you're able to grow it at 12 hours or 18 hours of light a day, you're going to have an insane amount of biofilm. The shrimp are going to do a little bit better, but it's not that much needed. You're just going to have to feed less in that tank. That's all.
The cycling tank usually starts to grow biofilm regardless. I mean, there's minerals in the water and stuff like that happens.
Biofilm will grow on anything aquatic,
But
whether there's a lot of light or
best.
just daylight or natural light coming in from the sun. So it's going to grow in places you don't want biofilm to grow. It's the truth.
Carradina DM asks, do you guys ship outside the U.S.? Not currently.
No, I'm
I don't.
sorry.
Shrimp probably will not be making it. Well, I mean, they
can't
would
say
make
that.
it.
I can't say that never, but like currently, we are having issues meeting the demand within the United States, so it doesn't make much sense for us to get the export license and pay all the shipping and all those other fees to get shrimp out of the United States. We have like big dreams of setting up bigger and more ponds and stuff like that. And if I could one day export to China and other countries, I'm all for it. But until we get that big, I'm fine with staying small in little old United States. I would like to ship to Canada. If we could figure out something like that, I wouldn't mind Canada, Mexico, Brazil. But
So Rob said, thinning out Java fern, all bunched up and root bound. How many leaves should a person keep per clipping? I mean, I will rip it all off if it's brown or dying. If it's bad, I will rip it apart. Like,
yeah, but
you'd be surprised. Just one leaf will do it.
Yeah,
but they do grow. So it depends on where it's root bound too, because you got Java ferns grow on the ends where it's dying. So, were you gonna say something? I'm sorry.
You were saying root bound, so they were growing. I thought you were gonna say the ribosome. I thought you were stumbling looking for a word. You were going to talk about how they grow off the dead head.
I would just bunch it out
of the leaves, but it really like you can sell portions of Java ferns with just 3 leaves, and that little bit of ribosome is going to grow and take off. So it really just depends on how big of the portion of clipping the person wants. You can do them small or you can do them big. We sell our portions $1 a leaf.
Vaughn asked, do you notice that moss grows better in hard or soft water?
I think it's easier to keep the algae out of it in our soft water tanks than it is in our harder water tanks. But
depends on the level of hardness. I mean, 8 pH, nothing really grows that well in 8 pH. So moss will not grow better in 8 pH.
No,
it's 7 if you consider that hard water. 7.5.
So like hardness would be like general dissolved solids.
Yeah,
and
but
stuff
also
like that.
the pH would raise.
But
that.
you can have super hard water and a really low pH. I have no idea what the dogs are getting into or what they're doing.
Goodness.
But if you have like super hard water, you're gonna have calcium deposits and stuff growing over the moss that'll help prevent it and choke it out. But you can have 400 total dissolved water. That's going to be hard water, and you can still grow it outside. We've got moss growing outside and the calcium deposit on the side of the tubs, but the moss doesn't really get it too bad.
What are your recommendations for nuking planaria?
We use No Planaria. It's a product. It's a bee nut or monkey palm nut. I can't remember exactly, But it's a powder. It's all natural. You dose it at nighttime, turn the lights off. The next day, do a 90% water change before it kills all your beneficial bacteria in the filter. And generally, after one full dose, it will kill off the planaria. If it's a really bad issue and it's deep in your substrate, and you might need 2 or 3 treatments, but we've only ever had a double dose, 1 tank.
Leaf mold from pond is what Father Fish suggests.
I mean, just breaking down old leaves and stuff like that, it's just gonna build up mold, and I don't really like that too much. It's just dirty tank and get stuff caught up in there and can't see stuff.
Passing Wind said, what do you think about using black diamond blasting sand for substrate?
We've used it in the past. It's a really cheap substrate, and it's inert, and it works just perfectly fine for neocaridina's. I don't like it for like quarry cats or something like that because it can cut up the bottoms of the bottom dwellers and stuff. But for shrimp, they can walk on glass. It's not really going to be a problem for them, and it's just a look thing. I don't really like the look of the green jade tank that has the black diamond blasting sand because it looks like they're walking on like trash of the substrate world. Like they just took all the broken bits of pieces of glass and stuff and just threw it in the tank. It's just real dusty if you get the finer one than the medium grade. But it's fine. It's cheap. It works. It's just what you prefer on look wise.
My neos are doing well on tap water, but now have RODI for my caridina. Do you recommend staying with tap or use remineralized water for my neos also?
So, if you're already doing fine with the neocaridina and it is easier for you to do tap water, stick with the tap water. However, if you're already mixing up the RO water and stuff like that, and it's easier now for you to mix your water than deal with tap water and moving hoses, I don't know how much work it's going to entitle you to do, but I would simply just go with what is ever easiest for you to maintain and keep consistent. Because if all of a sudden you're mixing RO water and it's taking you longer to make the RO water to do your neocaridina water changes, and it's preventing you from doing them every other week or something like that because your caridina are taking it up too much, stick with just tap water because you don't want to go, oh, I got to do a water change. I can't make enough RO water. I'm going to do RO water this week or tap water this week, and then I'll do RO water the next time. And just keep it consistent. For us, using all tap water for all of our neos is just easier. And all we do is we just simply test with the TDS pen the tap water right before we do our water changes. And as long as there's no drastic changes, the shrimp are fine.
Michelle just pre-ordered. Can't wait to get them.
Oh.
On that. So quick.
Very nice.
I'm so excited.
I will be giving Rob a call tomorrow because I was under the impression that you guys were the only ones that didn't get the tanks.
So he's sending out one at a time.
Okay, so there are people that have been getting
it's taking him time because he's building. I don't know if you've seen his videos. Rob has been building a whole new warehouse, very short staffed, and has not had time. So he's been sending one at a time when he can, and that's what the delay is about. So hopefully, I think you were like the first on the list. So I'm hoping you're the one he sent it to.
But
let's hope so.
I just found out today that you weren't the only one. I thought he had gotten everybody else but you. So I apologize to everybody that's waiting for one of their tanks from the American Shrimp Contest. But would you rather wait 6 months for a tank that's for you, or not have a tank at all? I hate to be the one to point it out like that, but Rob's a volunteer for the contest, so I can give him a call though.
It would have been great if we had just been aware of the situation and could have prepared for this and been able to have like labels ready to ship it all out. But we literally, like right before the show started, they were like, "Here's these tanks, figure it out." And I was like,
They
Okay.
gave it to us like a week or whatever beforehand, but we were doing something the week before. We had like 5 weeks of shows, and that last Chicago show was
They
in
didn't
those
give us
5
the
weeks.
tanks. The tanks were at the show.
No. I'm saying
awards.
I'm just saying they knew we knew about it, but we were at AGA. That's where we were, so we didn't have time to make boxes and labels and stuff like that for it. It wasn't possible.
Hey, Jess, haven't seen you in a while.
Missed the morning shows. Haven't had any.
Oh my goodness gracious! Has it not even been working the whole time?
Oh, it has. Otherwise, we would have been. Oh, I think we already did the live name. That's the only thing we have written
That's
down.
annoying.
But if we
I'm
weren't-
sorry.
If it wasn't
horrible.
working, Crypt Keeper would be telling me it's not working. We're good now.
So Lucas says, know any South Central American cichlids that are shrimp safe? Angelfish maybe, or smiling caras?
Off the top of my head, no. I can't think of any of them that are going to be any kind of shrimp safe. If we were to go to the OCA or one of the cichlid shows, I'm straight up letting them know, like, if you want feeders, these are going to be good feeders, but breed them. Keep the nice ones and feed off the ugly ones, because like if you're going to be breeding something to feed off, Neocaridina shrimp are going to be one of the easiest things to feed off to your cichlids. So what I would do, and I think Apistos are South American, I might be wrong, but if you were to set up in a tank, get it fully chop block full. What?
No, your Apistos ate all the shrimp in that tank.
No, there's still Apistos in there.
There's like
Set the
3
tank
shrimp
up
left.
full of shrimp. Get them breeding. Don't do blue dreams. Blue dreams are like the smallest Neocaridina. Do some nice big yellows. Get them breeding. Then add the Apistos. She's laughing now, but mark my words. By the end of this year, I will have an Apisto tank full of shrimp and baby Apistos.
They have already ate all the shrimp in this tank. You are absolutely
There are
absurd.
small. They're blues.
We're
I'm
gonna
gonna
have
do
to kick
reds.
him out
I'm
of
gonna
the
do
show.
yellows. I'm gonna do the big ones.
Unprofessional. Christopher said, thank you. Forgot to mention I will be adding a layer of potting soil on top, crushed lava rock, then store-bought coarse sand.
All right, yeah. As long as it's not. Father Fish has many different methods. He posts like 3 or 4 different live streams a week, and in each one, there's a ton of information. He's got several different things that he's done in his many years of fish keeping. We were actually lucky enough to see his facility back when he had a pet store, so we know.
Said, what's recommended treatment for planaria and tank with carbon relays and snails?
So depending on the snails, if they're like, hey, I really like these snails, Neurites, Mysteries, Sphinx, something like that, you're going to have to quarantine those in like a bucket or some type of container while you dose the no planaria. But if they're just ram's horns or Malaysian trumpet snails or pond or any of the pest snails that are considered pests in the hobby, those snails are probably going to die off, but the eggs will not, and the eggs are going to regrow. So I wouldn't worry about getting rid of too many of them. Because they are going to die, it is a good idea. Just remove them out of the tank if possible, just so they don't murk up or pollute the water if you do have a big snail issue.
Caridina DM said, cross fingers, I'm from Canada. If we could bring up and cross the border with some shrimp later, if we do plan on making a trip to Canada and being a part of a cool expo there and doing some aquascaping and hopefully a shrimp show in the future. So it would be awesome if we could ship some shrimp up for that, and then maybe, have some for that. That would be worth it for us.
Or even if we can fly, I'll bring as many shrimp as we can, and then
I'll fill out
ship
all
it
the
off
paperwork.
to you, ship it out to Jamie. You guys can do pre-orders, and we'll just distribute it to a few people up in Canada. Or maybe, there's some people there that you might be able to run down to the border and grab them and fly them, drive them back up.
Crip asked, when buying a Java fern on a mat like cocoa fiber, can you just toss the whole mat into the tank, or should we remove it and attach to wood?
You can just attach it straight from that cocoa fiber right onto the piece of wood or whatever you want to attach it to, or you can just plop it right down into a tank. It is going to be like a little mulm issue in the future. It might cause some problems, but for the most part, what we've seen is the ribosome is just intertwined with the cocoa fibers, and it really hasn't broken down or too much in our tanks. We haven't been using it for that long, so I don't know if, like, the toilet wood in 2-3 years is going to be like a huge mulm party in the 55-gallon tank down here. But we brought home some big ones from the aquascape contest, and they're still doing fine. And we didn't do anything; we just popped them in the tank.
Yeah, I would say though, in the long run, I wouldn't keep it on the fiber. It depends on how someone has it, because a lot of times, like some of these nurseries where you get it, it's so twined up with some of that what you would want to do after so long that it's growing is start cutting the twine, and it'll still stay sinking. It's just it needs to grow on that mat, and that's what that twine's used for. And then sometimes that suffocates the plant. So that's why a lot of times when you buy things from the store that are like root bound in those pots and you don't take them out and plant them, it's because they have nowhere to grow. Their roots are just, sitting there. So I would just cut the twine.
Trying to wrap up the speakers for the rest of the year.
Big Cat, is there any Caradinas I could try in my tap water, which is 1 GH, 2 KH, and 7 pH?
You're going to have to add something into that water, because 1 GH is not going to be good for either Neos or Caradina for them to molt. You want to have 4 GH at the lowest. I really recommend 5 or 6 GH. So we do have some salts that we currently sell on our website now. Salty shrimp. I would stick with a GH only, since you already have KH in the water. You don't need to add any more. And you can do any kind of tigers with that mix. So you could, being a big cat kind of guy, tangerine tigers, raccoon tigers, cheetah tigers. You got 2 cats right there. Orange-eyed blue tigers, orange-eyed black tigers, orange-eyed red body.
All right, we can go on this list a little too long.
There's some tigers for you, big cat.
Scuba said, how much y'all need for a new cord? Just let me know. I can't stand it anymore. So it actually is a new cord. That's the funny thing. So the cord that we had used previously that kept getting unplugged is doneer. Like, it's gone.
Doneer.
So it is doneer. Okay? It is more done than done. Okay? It's doneer. I'm sorry. That reminds me so much of this joke. But anyways, it's a new cord and it's just as terrible. So we're going to have to get another new cord. But anyways, quick little snippet. But we have a storage place in one of these towns called Outer Space. And I was just staring at it and I just started laughing so hard. And Grant's like, what's wrong with it? I'm like, well, they built that storage units because they're outer space. He just looked at me and he was just disappointed. I still think it's the best name for it. But anyway,
I'm just how happy she approved of my pun today. I can't tell you guys because it's gonna be a surprise and maybe some future boxes, but nothing yet. All right, let's get on with the giveaway. We got 2
oh my
minutes
goodness,
here.
I forgot about it.
Did you hashtag it in chat?
Yes.
Has it been going already?
No,
No,
I haven't.
All right, hashtag algae. We are going to give away some algae. Believe it or not, we have 500 pounds of Cladophora that we need to get rid of.
Okay,
And it is one. No, I'm just kidding. I, of course, mentioned the good algae before. I have some red moss. It may or may not be contaminated with some hair algae. You will be a guinea pig. If you do not want to be a guinea pig for the hair algae experiment, that's fine. I got some other hair algae for you. We've got some other hair algae. I'm dying in hair algae tonight, Shelby.
Other moss that are actually algae. Is that what you're trying to say?
Liverworts. We got our Sawassertang. And then I've got some portions of mini pelly. The mini pelly is possibly mixed in with some other mosses. That's why it's not on our website. If you're one of those people that don't care about mixed moss, well, we have mixed moss on the website.
Mystery.
Put in out like Pelia in my mixed moss, and I will hook that up for you, no problem. I don't know where I needed to go. It needs to go somewhere though. I can't do the mixed moss in my tanks no more. We got to do one moss in every tank so we could just take over all the mosses. That's the plan. But we got Pelias. If you want it, hashtag algae. How many more times can I yell in Shelby's ear tonight? We're gonna find out.
And
Get the
Vertigo
comment.
asks, "What is the rarest shrimp you have?"
Oh, what do you
Number
think?
10. I'm just
All right, I think I have 3 of the rarest shrimp. Shelby, name them off.
So your green caradinas.
Ooh, that's a good one. But yeah, okay. Not one I was thinking of.
You claim your half-siders are pretty rare, but I've seen a lot of people with the half-siders
The half-siders are rare in themselves, but
Yeah, okay.
yes.
So are you considering that one of them?
I don't have a half-sider, I don't think, right now in the house.
Oh, no.
Maybe in the Pinto tank. I haven't seen it for a minute.
Your next rarest to me would be the Hummel.
Hummel is a very rare shrimp.
You're not thinking of any of these,
No,
are you?
Hummel is one of those. Hummel is one of them. It is a wild type shrimp from Finland. They're kind of bluish purple, white in hue, kind of like a super princess bee, but like an ugly stepchild. And the father, or an ugly child, and the father was a raccoon tiger shrimp. So they're definitely prettier though than raccoons. Shelby can eat it, and yeah, that's one of them. Come on. I gave you a hint there.
Shrimp.
Green shrimp or green shrimp. Other people have green shrimp, but
Obviously, the shrimp from Peru. You weren't thinking of those
no,
either.
I wasn't.
Like the only ones.
All right, we
that
have a
don't have
mutation in the house from our super princess bees. They have like kind of bluish heads and then white stripes, and a ton of white stripes, kind of like a balti shrimp, but not really. Those are like hands down the rarest shrimp that we have, period, because nobody else in the world has them. I can't go to Finland and catch these. They are one of the lottery basically winning shrimp as having a mutation, and then we were able to take that mutation and get it to breed out with 2 generations now. So it is a go. If I can get it to mass produce, that would be like a beautiful thing, but numbers are still very low. It's still low chance of me doing that. Then we have another one in the house, and there are greens with the red hue, orange hue to them. I haven't seen anybody else with that.
Yeah.
What about the blue one today with the blue stripe?
I didn't think you wanted to talk about that.
I don't care. I don't have no secrets. These people, there's just one of them. We threw it in a tank today. Somebody that bought blue dream coals almost got 1 in a million shrimp.
Yeah.
Not today. It's
found
mine.
It's a blue shrimp with a
Evil
blue
that way.
backline, and it's a neocaridina.
It looks like a
red,
a blue bolt, crazy blue steel hybrid type shrimp.
If we go to the clash, yes, we will be aquascaping.
No, if Steve's doing it, I'm just gonna put my kids against him. No, I'm just kidding.
Aquashella is not going to be back in Chicago this year. Maybe next year if they find the right venue. I'm trying to ramble through. There's a lot of questions and a little time. Shelby and Grant, will we see plecos in the future? Yes, I will be adding those most likely this week if I can remember. My brain is fried all the time. So
if you want to email us at thegardenofeater@gmail.com. We have super red bristlenose and albino bristlenose. They're both short fin, nothing fancy yet. We just dipping the toes in the pleco game right now.
And it says, what other interesting fish animals do you want? Do I want? I want some Achilles fish, and I've already been reaching out.
All right. So in this order, I want caiman lizards, then caiman crocodiles, and then tigers. In that order. But
Tigers.
if you wanted to do like some radiated tortoises or Galapagos tortoises or fly river turtles, those are all heavily accepted
Chameleons.
at any time. I will take those for Father's Day
But I
gifts.
said fish animals. But
for
anyways,
birthdays,
this is,
Christmas.
oh my gosh, this was a bad idea. This is the fish I'm wanting and trying to find right now currently. That thing is phenomenal. I have to have one.
Those are all fish
So.
animals if you feed them fish.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Tigers eat
Okay.
fish.
Big Cat says, I forgot to mention I add GH to my cat water.
See, big Cat's feeling the tiger.
Christopher says, try and do some shrimp room tours while you are in Canada, please.
So
We'll have to if we have time.
I know of 2 people in Canada that have decent shrimp rooms, but the problem is Canada is like just as big as the United States, so like traveling might not be possible. We'll probably only have a few days in Canada, and it's going to be at the show that we go to.
TFI, welcome in. This is actually a really good suggestions. Do subscription boxes. I would buy them. Like do mixed moss and plant packages and make them like a mystery box. Ugh, I love those stupid things.
Well, that could be like a $50 option on our members.
See, I'm terrible. I worked at, of course, a boat store, and we get the mystery fishing boxes all the time where it always came with like a goodie in it. And I was like, I have to know like what's in these boxes. So I would open all of them up and then repackage them.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't stand the mystery.
$50 membership option comes with a subscription box, 1 medium flat rate box packed every month.
That'd be cool.
Not a bad idea.
Once we catch up on everything, because we're getting there.
Who wants to catch up on anything? We're young.
Thank you so much, Fantastic Freaks, for the $3 super sticker.
Thank you, Austin. I hope you're doing well this evening.
I love that. Oh.
Hopefully we'll see you again in Tennessee if they have Aquaticon. I supposed to message him about that and got all about it.
Bruce asks, a good source to buy Brightwell Rio Oscuro.
So, continuumusa.com or continue. I'm gonna have to find that out. They do have their own store now. So if you search where to buy Brightwell products or some Brightwell products, it'll come up with their store. I've always just bought it off of Amazon, and I haven't had to purchase it recently since I just figured out the store to buy the little cleaner scrapers and stumbled upon the substrate and everything else like that. So usually Amazon for like $80 for a 23 bag shipped to your door. I think price has gone up a little bit though, sadly.
So they put specific leaves in a tank and with a shrimp, and they swamp to it and ask for dessert. That's funny.
And then your bacteria is working double time and cleaning that water extra fine.
Yep. Actually, I don't think we've ever talked about that on the live stream. We'll have to bring that up on a specific,
that's secret information
one.
For the 86 people that are watching right now. That'll never be repeated ever again. It's actually going to be taken out. We're going to edit that out.
Michelle said, I'm going to need some of those princess bees.
I'm going to need some of those princess bees to breed a little bit more. They're being little princesses and not wanting to do nothing.
They are literally epitome of their name, princesses. They are
picky. They're one of the they're a paracaridina. They're not a caridina. They're a harder shrimp in the hobby. I've heard some other breeders have more success with them in lower pH. We just recently tried that out. Maybe after the winter, we'll have a little bit more time, more water changes, and drop that the TDS down a little bit lower.
Scuba says, tell them kids to bring it.
Listen.
Crib says, I have one yellow king kong male in a colony that is almost transparent. Been like that since I got it. What are the chances it's a Neo?
Listen, I couldn't even think about this because I was going to say, listen, you better watch out because Jaden's probably going to be wearing the same size slides the next time he sees you. He's going to take them from you when he beats you in that skate contest, boy. All right. I'm sorry. What did
He wears the
Gripkeeper
same
say?
size shoes as me already, and I am 5'8". It is ridiculous. I got big old feet, and that child has the same size feet as me now. But anyways, I have one yellow King Kong male in a colony that is almost transparent. Been like that since I got it. What are the chances it's a Neo?
Probably 0, because you can have the Yellow King Kongs from the Rillies throw straight clear ones. However, I feel like if you just let it go like another 4 months, it's going to turn yellow on you. Almost all of my ones that are full clear get some type of hue of yellow, but it's probably just a Yellow King Kong, really cool. But you've got the genetics in those Yellow King Kongs that make like $25 shrimps out of $3-4 shrimps. So it's nice.
Ebor Millie said, how are your isopods doing? I'm breeding mine out really well now. So I'm going to be completely honest. I just stopped taking care of them. They are still alive, but not breeding like crazy, just living. So I do plan on resetting everything and restarting most of my bins. I lost most of my like passion for it because I'm overworking myself. So it's kind of so the dog's looking at us through the tank. It's so weird. I need to narrow it down and not have the 17 to 18 species that I have right now. Kind of narrow it down and then work my way back up when I get the chance and into a routine. That's the thing about caring for animals. Like sometimes you get a little ahead of yourself, and it doesn't matter how experienced you are. Like I've been doing reptiles and fish for 10 plus years, and even when I was a kid, and sometimes you just don't do well with some things.
And it's not like the fish or the isopods are being like mistreated. They're just not being bred.
Yeah.
So when everybody's like, oh, you got eggs yet? You got eggs yet? And it's like, nah, but they're still alive. There are annuals that only last a year, but they're still alive 6 months later. So the clock is a ticking, but she's got all these empty tanks right here still to the left of me. Some of them.
There's only a few.
But all these. And I will be playing musical chairs with some of the fish as well. And we got some empty tanks in the garage.
Scuba C said, I don't want them both to get upset this time. So just kidding. Those kids would probably crush me. They're so talented.
Well, we will see how much they've learned this past year, because we have the Florida State Fair contest coming up, and they will be participating in that. There's also something else I wanted to talk about, is the Reuben video coming out. So real quick before we talk about Nano's question, we finished filming and all the audio is recorded. Shelby will be piecing it together. She said she wants to get it done in the next few days. So our trip to Dallas, it's going to be featuring Mr. Shrimp Pimpin' himself, Ruben Melendez, his house. But then we also threw in a little bit of Aquashella in the Aquascape contest on the end of that video. So that'll be done this week.
Okay.
I'm hiccuping. It's
Nano Aquarium guy said, Grant and Shelby, how do you feel about Aquashella Daytona instead of Orlando? Won't know till it actually happens whether it's going to be an improvement, if they actually have the same venue that we're thinking. I'm hoping it's the Daytona Reptile Expo building. That's really, really nice. The only issue with Florida, I just can't stand it, food. So Orlando was absolutely miserable. I mean, we work, 4 days for this event, and imagine not eating, maybe eating one meal a day, if that. 2 of the days, usually Saturday and Sunday, we don't get a meal. And if we do, it costs us $90 at the Orlando Gaylord Palms. It's just really expensive. So a lot of vendors were complaining how expensive the booth is, how expensive the hotel is, how expensive it is for all the food at the resort. Some people just don't make money. So I'm hoping Daytona, with it being a little bit cheaper, will probably be better for the vendors, and then we'll be able to go get food nearby. I know Daytona is a good restaurant area, usually has little bars and stuff like that. So finger foods that won't cost you, $70 for 5 chicken nuggets. I'm hoping it will be a little bit better, and I think that's why they moved it, was money situations and like making it worth for the vendors to actually enjoy it. So can't say till we do it though.
I'm a little bummed because we were kind of like planning out on maybe like Thursday or Friday after we get the shrimp contest all set up, driving back with a few people, having them come check out the house, and then driving back. It'd only be a 4-hour round trip. I can make it even shorter than that if the people are comfortable with my driving. And then, Daytona, that adds on an extra hour at least each way. So you're looking at a 6-hour round trip now if you're going from the show to come take a look at our place. So that's probably not going to happen for some of the people that we planned out. We might just be making a trip to Daytona, packing up everything we need, hoping we don't leave anything at home. And I just hope it's like the hotel that they have for the show is booked on the beach. Go out in the morning, catch a few waves, shower, jump in the venue.
More like get stung by jellyfish like I did last time.
I will wake up at 7:30 and not drink at all so I can go surfing every morning if it's a beach.
2-second thing about telling Grant that I always get stung every time I step foot in the ocean. And like one of the first times we go to Daytona, I dive face first into the wave and get smacked in the face by a jellyfish. And I had these red tentacle marks and my lips were all swollen for dinner. It was hilarious. I told him, I was like, I'm not kidding about jellyfish. I'm like, that one just wanted to give me a kiss. Scotty said multiple people from Mid-Atlantic Killy organization attend ACLC. Start reaching out now and see if they can bring them to ACLC when you guys are there. That's a good idea. Thank you.
All right, let's do the giveaway though.
Oh yeah. But anyways, can after this, if anyone could hit that like button, we're really low on likes this time. And let's draw.
48 entries for the algae. Who's going to get it?
Mile High Fish.
Well, congratulations. Let us know you've got the choice between the red moss. Again, might have air algae, might get lucky, might not. But we do also have Sawasser Tang option or the mini Pelly mix moss as well. So let us know. Email us at granteater
Garden of Eater at gmail.com.
The Garden of Eater at gmail.com, and Shelby will take care of boxing and getting that shipped out next Monday for you. Just let us know which option you'd like. So, all right, what else we got in chat? Let's catch up. I got some energy
Belinda
left in
says,
me.
Nano Aquashella Australia sounds better. That'd be so cool.
It'd be expensive though. I don't think we'd be able to get half the stuff there. Or anything.
Michelle had a caiman. Her and John had a caiman lizard. That's awesome.
A caiman crocodile or caiman lizard? Caiman means two different things.
I mean, crocodile. Oh, that'd be so awesome.
But I've wanted a caiman lizard for an awfully long time. We just never were able to breed enough snails through the wintertime. So we got to find a way to mass produce snails in the garage and then get a caiman. Fantastic
Freak said Aquaticon or the Clash. Might try to get over to the Keystone in September. Long drive though, but thinking about it. It is worth it. It was definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hopefully making it to both shows this year.
Mm-hmm. All right. Abstract said, I've heard the orange-eyed shrimp are blind. Is that true?
So I don't think it is, and Shelby pointed this out, is the shrimp know you're there when you're out of the tank. So how would they be able to sense or feel or anything like that when you're even up at the front of the glass? Like those, yeah, you want to take pictures and the shrimp is all nice and sideways and you got the beautiful 3-centimeter full length, full grown shrimp, and you get your glass or your photo out, get your camera out, and you put it right up next to the glass, and all of a sudden now it's like danger. You're not even touching the glass.
And it's not even shadows because the whole room we black out because it gives for a better picture.
And all of a sudden now that shrimp is worried about you and it's facing you. It's no longer sideways. It's like, all right, do I need to jet backwards or do I need to start doing kung fu? It's ready. it's getting there.
Have you guys ever used polyfilter? Not sure if it's worth it, but what I'm looking for is something that doesn't shred fibers. Hate that.
We've used it for like tanks that didn't really have time to cycle at the shows and stuff like that, but I haven't used it for planting or anything like those kind of materials. Want something like that doesn't break down? You can pack aqua soil into mesh bags and stuff like that.
Sophia said she hopes Layla beats Jaden. I hope me and Layla both take home Best of Show this year. We are really struggling with these boys here, okay?
Shelby doesn't even know I started on my tank already.
Yeah, I hope I'm gonna crash it. I don't care. You're not gonna beat my tank this year.
I can't do my tank at the Florida State Fair, so I'm doing something at home. I'm actually just gonna do it over the course of the next 30 days. Or I'll do it all in 30 minutes before we have to drive it there. I haven't decided yet. I haven't started.
Just a little snippet of how it is living with the old master Grant here. The Florida State Fair asked him to do a escape demonstration, and I'm like, all right, that makes sense. But the lady goes on, and she had done the whole time we were at the Florida State Fair last year. She was like, I love your escape, Shelby. It's just so cool. The trees and everything about it. I just absolutely love it. But then emails him and tells him that she wants him to do escape demonstration just like my tank. Gotta love it.
You missed it, though, because she was talking so much smack about Shelby's tank and how it was going to win. And I was like, you're not even giving me a chance. I haven't set up my tank. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet. And she's like, I just know this tank's going to win. And I'm like, all right. But then my tank won. So I think that's why.
I'm still hurt about it. WB says, what's a table cost? Is something like that? $1,700?
No, $750 for a table at Aquashello.
$750, right?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, $750 is the cheapest table.
It should be on their website. You can get
corner tables for $850 or a double booth for $1,500, I think. And the double booth comes with a corner most of the time.
Oh, it's a crocodile. I am so jealous. Oh, it's so great.
Yeah, so I actually have a good friend that was really getting into the hobby of the crocodile scene and stuff like that with one of the big time guys, Fred, who passed away, had a bunch of crocodiles. And I was like, dude, Dan, the next time you go over there, you got to let me come over there and check out. And he passed away, sadly, before we could arrange that. But I know where the Caymans went to, and hopefully I'll be able to see them one day still.
Scuba C says, "Bam, bring it! I'm gonna beat y'all and y'all's kids. All love, not fair. If y'all escape and y'all kids, then I really won't have a chance." Oh, they're so cute.
I'll take Layla to throw ash in your tank, and we'll just cloud it all up, and the judges won't even be able to see it.
Nana said, "We need more Shelby escape videos." I am trying. Grant almost broke my tank today.
So, Harley, your tank is tank tested for sure.
My car and my tank almost broke.
There was a green light, and I wasn't going to be sitting at this light. The light is a long, long red light. Well, there's a hill in the middle of the road. And you know what I mean? I was like, oh, we're going to catch air, just making a joke. I didn't know there's like a little dip in a lip right before the hill, and we caught air before the hill, and your tank was in the back of our car, and it went from the floor to the ceiling and back down to the floor again. Fine. All good. It's good. We're good.
Yeah. It's been a little chilly here, so give me some time. It's kind of hard to do anything with like it being cold. It is just too cold for me. Jay Oliver says, "I'm bringing guppies to next Aquashello Dallas." Awesome. It's a throw up for us on that sounded weird. It's a throw up. I don't know 100% if we're going to go to the Aquashello Dallas. Depends. We're going to weigh our options on that one. So if they don't have everything we need, if we don't do, they just haven't announced anything. If there's no shrimp contest, there's no aquascaping contest, there's no reason for us to be there over at the same time is going to be the ALA and the
KA.
AKA. Is
And
it the AKA? I'm definitely not going then.
But if there's a shrimp contest, we're going to Dallas.
No.
And there's probably going to
Looks
be a
like we're
shrimp
gonna
contest.
split 2 ways here. Looks
Do a
like you're
double
going
show?
to Dallas without me.
I'm supposed to escape with
I'll take the kids.
Kevin
they'll
in
help me.
Dallas. And then me and you were doing our tanking with Brian in Orlando or Daytona now. So
Yeah, as long as I don't have to skate with you. Get my own tank. No, it is. That was last year. Was in February. This year is in November in Daytona. That is the new Aquashella.
yeah, no Aquashella dates in February this year.
Yep.
The last 2 years was in February for
Orlando.
the Orlando show, but I think there's a vendor issue, booking issue with the venue, not vendor.
Oinky said, if I go to Aquashella this year, we might pass each other. I have family that call home and stay with that live in Porsche Palace in Spring Hill. What?
I don't know where Porsche Palace is, but
Right.
there might be more than one Spring Hill
Oh,
because I know there's a Spring Hill in like different states. So
okay. You're throwing me all off. Oh, maybe in Texas, Spring Hill?
Yeah.
Hill? That'd be weird. So it said Orlando coming soon before they updated it. Now it's updated. It's currently updated.
yeah, no, I think there was like just one little thing that they were trying to get locked in with Orlando, and they couldn't make it happen. So Daytona was the better show.
Where's your guys' source for Goodyeads? We actually got them from a Goodyead auction at the Triple Crown.
Which would have been the ALA. We also got some. I think your first Goodyeads came from the first ALA that we went to
Yep.
in
South Florida.
South Florida.
When they
So,
had the Aqua Expo mixed with the ALA and the, was it just ALA?
it
I
was
thought
just ALA and the Aqua Expo in South Florida, which is the club, the Golden. I don't know the club. Gold Coast. Sorry, Aquarium Cove.
Gold Coast Aquarium Society.
Yeah.
You had to butcher that one, but we are all caught up in chat.
And Shelby should have some Goodyeads available on the website.
I do. It's just not warm yet.
when it warms up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry. But yeah, I have tequila Goodyeads that are definitely ready. I have 3 full tanks of them, and the babies are breeding in the tanks with the babies. So I'm getting a little too crowded. Definitely got to weave those out, and some nice tequilas. So.
It's in Shady Hills, so just past Spring Hill. But
That's
yeah,
crazy.
close enough. We only go to Cruise Lake Park in that area. Not much else for us over there.
Yeah, but not far at all.
Well, I think I talked about everything. We mentioned Ruben, our next video that should be coming out hopefully sometime this week. So check that one out. Check out our last video collaboration we did with Crypt Keeper Aquatics. Crypt, feel free to drop the link to your video in the chat below. And yeah, everybody have a good week, and we'll see you next week. We'll have a new topic.
Yes, there was one more thing I needed to say before we start.
What is it?
I don't know.
The awkwardness is killing me.
I know. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Oh, please hit the like button. Thank you. Have
Later,
a good
everyone.
night. Hit the end button.